6:47 in Trinidad and Tobago. We want to continue our discussion with the leader of the Congress of the People, Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan. We want to broaden our discussion on the entire budget presentation, but you wanted to make a specific point in relation to the entire issue of Petrotrin and the understanding of the ramifications of the shutting down of the refinery operations.
The issue, I looked and I listened carefully to the Minister of Finance because I was trying to find out what is he allocating in the budget for this particular decision. You see, my estimate, back of the envelope, to the cost of the government to shut this refinery down is almost $20 billion.
$20 billion. Billion dollars.
To shut it down. Let me just start by saying, you're telling me $2.6 billion to separate out the employees.
Yes.
Then you're saying $7 billion required for upstream to give you this new modernized exploration and production. That's almost what?
9.6
billion.
9.6, yeah.
Then you are telling somebody has to absorb the debt. The new E&P company is not picking up this debt. So you're talking about $850 million US plus 250 outstanding. That's $1 billion US.
Right.
That's another 6.3, say 7 billion, somewhere around there.
Right.
Plus the financing cost for the
first
year.
So we reached 16 billion.
Yeah, right. What is the cost of mothball? Now, I note that the opposition leader, because this was a matter we have been discussing at our public forum. So last week, Tuesday, we had this matter with respect to, did the government get an EIA in terms of a CEC to shut this refinery down?
A certificate of environmental clearance. Yeah.
Because there are risks involved. Now, I expected the kind of response from the Petrotrin chairman this morning, because we were addressing the EMA on this particular issue as well. And that is, he will say that we are not decommissioning the plant. However, the terms being used is preservation of the assets themselves for restart. Preservations of assets, the preservation of the assets is still a modification of the plant and equipment and the process. And that, in my view, still requires a CEC. And you have not, I know that one has not been granted because the EIA process itself would have involved some consultations. That didn't happen. But even to do this, to be able to preserve these assets, which you have to wind down, you have to shut down, etc., there's a cost to this. And this could run you, when you finish do that EIA, and you determine what you have to do. You have to have patrols of operators. You have a full fire department for emergency response, for fence-line communities, because you can't have leakage, you can have catalysts, and so on. Hydrocarbons. So it's still like you haven't operated. Where is that money coming for? I see that to bring that to that state of preservation in accordance with the requirements for the environment could take you as much as $3 to $4 billion.
So that's where you come up with the figure of 20 billion.
I come up with 20 billion.
Yeah.
That may be a little, depending on what is intended. If you go to decommission, it will be way more than the 4 billion. Because right here in Port of Spain, the decommissioning of that plant was about $1 billion, the power gen plant. So the point I'm making is that when we talk about this shutdown, the cost to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you have to borrow this amount of money to facilitate this exit out of this business. Secondly,
so, okay, go ahead.
Secondly,
yeah.
I noticed that he criticized the medical plan a lot. I thought that as a government, you would want to ensure the medical plan continues. I mean, I know there are inefficiencies in the medical plan, etc. But when you take 20,000 people off of that medical plan, they become a burden now on the national health system, Minister. And this is why we have to support the private health care and private medical plans throughout. Where is the value added? Did we consider the multiplier effect? When you look at all the service contractors and so on that are there who support this industry, you know, they have employees as well. And those employees are going home. We are saying that there may be a multiplier effect of about 3 to 4. You could be talking about another 20,000 people impacted, plus all the spin-off industries, the service industries, etc.
So, in essence, then, what are you saying, that it should have been left to continue as is?
I'm not saying no, not business as usual, because we have identified a number of improvements from all the reports. And these improvements will even take you into more positive cash flows and a wider margin. I mean,
so why weren't those done before?
This is the issue. We need to change the governance structure. But you know, Fazeer, they are doable, they're fixable.
Why weren't they done in the time of the People's Partnership?
Oh, we started that whole process of restructuring the governance of Petrotrin. I know I did that as Minister of Energy. And that is why I'm saying, you see, I'll tell you something, I agree. You see, this amount of political interference into these state enterprises has led us to where we are today. And we have to take responsibility for that at the end of the day.
But a couple of days ago, Vasan Bharat, your former cabinet colleague, effectively said that at the time, the People's Partnership did not do what should have been done in making the tough decisions, and therefore agree to a certain extent that the UNC or the People's Partnership had no moral authority to comment on this situation. Isn't it convenient for you now that you are on the other side and are able to criticize willy-nilly and free sheet, isn't it very convenient for you to be raising all these things now?
I don't think anybody, what we had done in 2010, if we had maintained it, it would have borne fruit.
Why wasn't it maintained?
Right? I can't say at this point in time, but what I'm trying to say is...
Isn't that a question that should be asked?
Yes, it's a valid question, but I don't have the answers to it. I don't have the answer. What I'm saying is that we need to look forward. We have to stand where we are today, and I'm not in the blame game, you know, from every administration I've gone forward. We have to look at what is in the best interest for the future of Trinidad and Tobago. What can we fix? And if we as a people don't fix these problems, then we have all failed. And this is what I'm appealing to the government to do. Look at the situation. Treat and meet with the union. I know the union themselves, they have to change, they have to modernize.
But they have no intention of changing. All they're interested is keeping the salaries as they were. They made no noise all these years, all these decades, when these very high salaries and so on.
No, I disagree, because I think the union, look at last year when they did have their negotiation, the union agreed that they suggested to the board and management, we will not take an increase, we will not take any we will not take any back.
But they were going on strike for 5%, and they basically threatened a shutdown and held the country to ransom.
You were able to bring them to the table. Unions do what they have to do. They defend their workers. It is up to you as leaders of this country to bring them to the table and negotiate. What were you able to achieve? They didn't take any back pay. They said we will hold on all back pay until the company turns around. It was the union, when we brought them to the table in 2010, and we put them on all the committees that were able to go back and boost worker morale and get that slight increase in production in the fields, etc. So, you know, it is union and workers. You see, and sometimes we go after the workers, but at the end of the day, leadership and management, responsible. Union and workers don't cause overtime to go out of control. Union and workers don't cause cost overruns.
But they benefit from it though, and they stay quiet about it.
And the thing about it is, this is where management comes in. And why I'm saying this is that at the end of the day, we need to get a meeting of the minds for the sake of the future of our country.
But in relation to that, and we just have a few minutes left, and we haven't even touched on the broader issues with the budget, but the government has said there's no turning back. The government has said that this is effectively a done deal. They've offered it to the unions. The unions have said that
and what
they have
process was used for that? If you are going out there and you want to invite for private investors, including the union, that's not the way you do that. Where was the request for proposal process? Where you would have a data room with all the financials and all the technical manuals, all the operational engineering specifications. Then when you do select, you have a due diligence. What are the people bidding on? What are people proposing on? Where is the transparency in this process? I was very surprised that this is the way the government said, well, you know, whoever wants to take it. That's not the way you do business. And these are valuable assets. The replacement cost for this is close to $4 to $6 billion. And let me just say, when we talk about value added, and just let me cross over quickly to this issue of the CEC, because I listened to Dr. Rowley, the Prime Minister, saying political stupidity when we shut down the Alutrin project. But I want to remind Dr. Rowley that the reason for the shutdown of the Alutrin project had to deal again with the judge, the court, Justice
Miradina
Amora,
yeah,
when she's indicated that there was no valid CC, the process was flawed. And the construction of that plant stopped in 2009. How could you continue to construct a plant when you do not even have a CC? You're breaking the law.
But wasn't it very political? Because wasn't it part of the People's Partnership campaigning for the election to say you're going to shut down the Alutrin smelter?
And why? It was because of the same basis that the court ruled. You never consulted with people. Look at the environmental issues coming out of this Chinese company in those days, you know, who was involved in this particular project. I can't remember the name now. But, you know, were they meeting the environmental standards? Did you have was it process for the EIA? These are things, this is why we have laws to protect the people and to protect our country. We have to operate within the law. I hear Minister Imber talking about, what was the issue? Transfer pricing. Transfer pricing by law, and again, I will say this in 2010, that was one of the first things we spoke about, re-establishing the Petroleum Pricing Committee in accordance with the Petroleum Act. You cannot have these prices being determined as they are, because right now, as I said, even in Petrotrin case, that transfer price may be too high based on what is happening.
We just have about 60 seconds left, Ms. Seepersad-Bachan. What would be, if you could sum up, from your perspective, what would be the consequences to the nation of the government continuing with its plan to shut down the refining
I think
operation?
you would lose the economic activity that is generated out of that value added, as in the petrochemical sector. And I wanted to say this because there's a heavy reliance on our gas sector. If you notice what has happened, this bump that we have seen is because of the increase in gas production from the Juniper field, which was able to generate further increases in production in methanol, in fertilizers, etc., and all others. And that is what brought in your earnings, you brought in extra activity and so on. That is what is important. Just to close to say, you know, I did not see any reform measures. When we cut expenditure, ease of doing business, cost of doing business, that has been cut out from this particular budget. And these are the initiatives we need. If we are talking about increasing the price of gasoline, then hear what? We need to reform the way we work. Decentralize public services, bring more public services online, which is what our Gold to Diamond project was about. So you don't have people in this traffic jam from 5 o'clock in the morning, wasting fuel at the end of the day. Renewable energy, bring on. You're talking about 10%? We had the HES program. Go back into that program where citizens themselves, that feed-in tariff was there already in 2010. Let citizens put on solar panels, put on portable devices where they could generate renewable energy and supply the grid. And by doing so, when supplying the grid, you will be able to probably start moving towards that issue. You know,
Ms. Seepersad-Bachan, I know there are a lot of other issues, and hopefully we'll have another opportunity to develop the discussion. Thanks very much for taking the time to be with us this morning to offer some perspective in relation to the budget presentation and the state of Petrotrin. What happens with Petrotrin? The news coming up, then we move into the second hour of Morning Edition on this Friday.